So first of all, hello from Mexico. We've been really having a hard time tackling the COVID, but here we are. Mexico, placed in the northern part of the continent. It's a gateway, really, for the whole continental market. And although we've been having a very harsh situation with the third wave, the good news is that the deaths has not been as bad as in the previous wave. And now the rollout of vaccines is giving us a lot of hope, especially because we now have covered more than 71 million doses for 126 million people living in our country. So this is really encouraging. So what we see now is that in comparison, 2021 versus 2020, we really have a very good forecast for a steady recovery. And if we look at, in general, the numbers for the GDP and how the private consumption and the domestic demand are reacting to this recovery, for 2021, we have already have a pre-pandemic level for 4.6% of increase and 4.3% of increase. And we expect for 2022 to continue with a good pace and to try to recuperate all of these numbers that we have seen in the private consumption dropping during the first months of the lockdown. And so now we can see that the people are coming back to the marketplaces, both not only on e-commerce, but also people on the streets. You know, for this third wave, Mexico is not in lockdown, so we can expect that we will recuperate these numbers. For the inflation rate for 2021, we saw this increase essentially pushed by the increase in the cost of food, transportation, gas, and gasoline. But it is expected to go down back to levels around 3%. About the unemployment and other situations like this informal employment, who had a very, very high peak in 2021, we expect to little by little recuperate our numbers. And right now, for the pandemic trends in the evolution of the consumption market, we expect that, as in the rest of the world, that for 2021, we could see that apart from prioritizing basic products, that we assume that this will continue, some of the good reactions for the consumption outside of the home and those non-essentials like in department stores and tourism will be growing. Important to say that as Mexico never closed its frontiers, we still had a very, very good figures for tourism visiting our very nice places and international touristic sites. So in terms of what we expect for international commerce, I think it's important to say that Mexico, being a very open market, we are also pulled by the good reaction of the United States. So exports of services, as you could see here, of goods and services, for 2021 had reached a 12.2% rate and imports at 10.1% rate, which is really, really impressive. If you see in the lower chart, we have the United States in comparison with the rest of the world really recovering its pre-pandemic levels. So although we have maybe optimistic scenarios and pessimistic scenarios in the press all the time, we can also think that Hong Kong could be a great partner for Mexico in many ways. First of all, because we have a very open and many trade facilitation and customs procedures being very easy to understand and very easy to meet in terms of requirements. We also have a very interesting program, the Authorized Economic Operator, that gives facilitation and clearance customs procedures. And this has been in place since last year and very active. So we also have first-class logistics, especially for e-commerce. This is a very important topic. And a very good connection with the regional markets, both to the northbound and to the southbound of the continent. Regional connectivity to enter all of these markets, it's also enhanced by many, many free trade agreements that we have in place. Plus, we have Mexico as a very interesting showcase for trendy and innovative products and services, and our marketplaces are in the race. So you could see here, if we analyze what are the reaction of the markets by regions, we see this very interesting blue line. This blue line, it's North America. So you would see that also in terms of imports, that it's relevant for our topic today. Well, they're reacting as well as many other countries that are not registered here, but as the other countries. But it's important to say that if you see the Asia levels are very close to what we're seeing in this part of the world. In Mexico, we also have this very interesting chart where now imports have recuperated the normal trend, which is that we normally have imports increasingly reacting to what the economy is giving us as opportunities more than exports for 2020. So now, after the post-pandemic expectation of a speedy recovery is driving enterprises to look for external markets, Mexico is definitely in the need of diversifying its international trade. 83% of our trade is with the US, so people are looking for opportunities elsewhere. And opportunities for Hong Kong in the regional market, it's also complemented by a reach of more than 460 million Hispanic population to tap into this Mexican and Latino markets. It's also a big plus that should be considered by Hong Kong enterprises. And we have 38.5 million Mexican in the US and Canada. So re-exporters can benefit from these preferential tariffs that we have with the North American agreement. It's one of the most advanced in the world, and it has been recently refurbished, let's put it that way. It has new structures, and no VTI and simple and straightforward clearing customs procedures is also one of our main advantages. Mexico e-commerce marketplaces are very attractive and trendy in the Latin markets. As you can see, for example, Mercado Libre, which is the biggest player in Mexico, we have 126.6 million visitors per month. Amazon with 63.6 million visitors per month, and Walmart with over 27 million. So just to give you an idea that to understand what's happening in these open marketplaces, it's very, very important. Let's look at this final chart, and I will pass the floor to Marianna and to David, who accompanies us this morning, and we want to really give them a big hand because I know that they have prepared wonderful presentations to take us deep into these markets and how they work. But just to give you a very brief look of what it's all about. Mercado Libre for the second quarter of 2021 has reported visits per second, 538, purchases per second, 29, 65 million buyers, 12 million sellers, 245 million items sold. But most of all, they also have an ecosystem that includes easy payment methods plus a lot of accounts with invested funds and loans that could be used by consumers. So, thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to give you a brief overview how you can address the Mexican market. Now, I'll start just by telling you a little bit about myself, not as much for ego, but for you to understand why I moved here. I'm Portuguese. I've lived in 10 countries for the past 21 years. And I've settled in Mexico, between Mexico and other places, Brazil among them, in 2008. To give you an idea, I raised capital at the time, launched my first e-commerce. I've worked with e-commerce since 1999. Worked in several markets, from European markets, the US markets, all over Latin America, from Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, where I still have a home, to Mexico. And Mexico being my favorite country in terms of opportunities. And why did I come here? I came here because at the time I was taking Sony Music in Miami, covering the Latin market. And I had already an e-commerce company in Portugal, and I saw massive potential in the market. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it. And Brazil was the obvious choice for me, because being Portuguese, having family in Brazil, having the same language and so on. But then I saw, wait, there's a much more untapped market in Mexico that can be addressed. And I'm going to make the comparison because I know that many people look at Brazil as the great opportunity in the region, but I kind of tend to disagree a little bit, as I believe the options are better in a country like Mexico. So my career has been a lot around digital transformation. I founded a company and I'm the CEO for Leads Adventures. We support every type of company, especially retail and brands, to enter the market, develop their e-commerce strategy, and then all the technical things from user testing, customer journey definition, how do we optimize things like payments, logistics, and so on. I've also created a school. I teach at university, e-commerce, digital marketing. And so we've been working like with all these brands, and we've been going through all the pandemic. We've been going through all these experience that we're living through. And it's curious because several of the things that we were saying, I remember having lunch with the owner of one of the largest brands in Mexico, a fashion brand. And in January, before the pandemic started, this was 2020, so it wasn't obvious the whole like close down or anything. People were starting to speak about COVID, but it wasn't the main focus of our conversation. And I told him, hey, look, I think this is what's going to happen the next 3 to 5 years. Your market is going to change like this, and this. And he calls me again in May and he says, David, it's incredible because everything you told me that was going to happen in 3 to 5 years actually happened to us in 5 months. And so I think it's a little bit what's happening all over the world, but Mexico has very specific characteristics. It's a very interesting market but you have to understand why it's such an interesting market and how to address it. And so in my quick presentation today, what I'm going to explain you a little bit is what's so specific about it, its potential, and how to address it. And then we'll have the Q&A at the end. So in terms of the market potential, we are seeing like a strong growth. If you see in 2020, the client, like all over the world, had two things. The first thing was it had time because it was at home, and it had the need to use technology because people couldn't get out. So we had the perfect storm for e-commerce, and this has raised significantly. We had a 65% growth on online sales right now. And these numbers, it always depends on the source, but it's around 9% of retail sales. Depends on how you calculate it. A lot of sectors are not still there, but the market is becoming more mature. These are the official numbers. I would challenge them a little bit. It's probably a little bit below the 9%, but what it shows is the market is clearly waking up for what's happening. It always depends on whether you include things like online gambling, if it includes flights from airlines and so on. So the numbers are always a little bit, you have to take them with a grain of salt. But the truth is, Mexico is now like a relevant market in terms of retail. And Mexicans buy online for three main reasons: home delivery, time saving, more promotions, and discounts online. Curiously, while a lot of people thought that security was, or safety was, one of the main issues not to buy online, one of the key issues for Mexicans was that the product would be delivered at the right at the moment where they were home. So logistics have played a major factor in Mexico so that the e-commerce would grow. And working in several countries, I can tell you that by now we already have like logistics that are on par with several of other top countries. So Mexico and Brazil. Brazil is always, I joke a lot, that has one of the best country marketing in the world. And why? Because everyone thinks about Brazil and it's such an amazing place, and it's carnival and the beaches, and everything is so great and everything. Now, let me tell you, Brazil, it's a very hard place to do business. And once you start comparing, although Brazil has 211 million, so considerably larger than Mexico in terms of population, it has 128 million. The GDP per capita is quite inferior to the one of Mexico. So yes, you have a smaller country in terms of population, but you have a larger purchasing power, which is still not on par with places like Hong Kong, for instance, or the US and so on, but it's still a better opportunity. Also, like Amapola mentioned, it's a country that has very open borders. And something that I always say that is very important, it's the ease for business. Brazil has improved, but it's still 124. Mexico is close to Spain. Brazil was like close to Zimbabwe in Africa. So it's a very bureaucratic country, Brazil, while Mexico, it's much easier. Labor law, also, it's much easier. Imports and exports are much easier. Contact with the US here is fundamental. Brazil is very isolated. And then when you go on corporate taxes, these are like the direct corporate taxes. Brazil has much more corporate taxes. And the import taxes on the type of products we are seeing are here from 0 to 35%. In Brazil, we're talking about 10% to 360%. So just to give you an idea of what happens in Brazil, like when you talk about like a Birkin bag from Hermes, which is a luxury product that could cost like $5,000, in Brazil would cost around $16,000. Although this is decreasing, the market, the luxury market, for instance, in Brazil, and fashion market, a lot of products that are mass market in Brazil are almost luxury because the import taxes are so high. The other thing that you should consider is that Mexico has the Spanish language, which covers the rest of Latin America, with some adjustments, but in general, it's a very similar language. Now, how did we arrive here? Well, we arrived here by the following situation. First, we had the bubble in '99, which was, oh, e-commerce is growing everywhere, so in Mexico it's the next big thing. But the large companies, they threw themselves at the market. They thought it was going to go big as well, but it was the same collapse as it was everywhere else. So at that point, people were like, oh, Mexicans don't buy online. So there was a desert. There was no investment. There was no growth. There were very little development in the e-commerce ecosystem. But what happened was large companies would deliver sometimes in like 60 days. So of course, it's not that Mexicans don't buy online. Mexicans didn't know how to sell online. So after that, 2008, that's when I arrived to the country with startups, but also we were not big enough to educate the market. But then Brazil was booming, and funds started looking at, like Rocket Internet started looking at, hey, there are other markets, there are other opportunities. So why don't we go into a market like Mexico, which is the second largest market after Brazil? And so we start, companies like Dinho and Dafiti are created then. They start educating the market. Then eventually Amazon starts arriving as well. Mercado Libre was always here. It's an Argentine company that is doing a great job all across the region and is the largest. And then we get to, and now we are starting to see the market getting to maturity. Maturity from international players, I would say, more than local players. To give you an idea of the main categories that Mexicans buy online, technology and medicines are top. Media and entertainment follows. Fashion and accessories is getting really big. There are companies like Shein that are also addressing the market from abroad with very good results. Beauty and personal care, health and wellness, furniture and home decor. IKEA just arrived into the market. You have large players that are doing great jobs as well, like Gaia. A lot of them are importing from Asia already. Then you have pets, big category as well, sports and kids and babies. So if you're going to address the market, these are probably some of the most interesting companies or categories to address. Now, in terms of taxes, import taxes change. So below $50, it's usually free. Then like something like fashion and clothes, it can be, and shoes can be at 24 to 26%. Also, like you're seeing this, and the processes are improving. You're seeing a lot of cross-border e-commerce, especially with Amazon in the US, where you have a lot of the products that they have in the marketplace are already arriving to Mexico as well. And they say there, if you go to the website, import, and you usually have to pay. But this process of payment used to be very complex, and it's getting easier. So the minimum requirements to import are inscription in the Padrón de Importadores, automated inventory control, updated and complete foreign trade file, be up to date in taxes obligations. With this, the best way you have to do is either work directly with the marketplaces, or work with as a local partner in Mexico. It's very tricky, the Mexican market, in terms of culture. So I would definitely, especially being a foreigner, having seen the differences, people think that just by speaking the language, they are able to address the market. But the truth is, culturally, it's a very tricky market. To give you an idea in terms of what happens on the market, in terms of days, you have Mother's Day in May, Then you have Hot Sale. Hot Sale is like a Cyber Monday that is organized all over Latin America. Then we have Hot Fashion, which is like a Cyber Monday just for fashion. It's an interesting date. It's definitely not as big as Hot Sale or Mother's Day or Buen Fin, which is followed in November. And then you have in December the holiday season with Christmas. Just to give you an idea on traffic to e-commerce websites during 2020, you see the peak that you have in November. In terms of, you see Hot Fashion that last year was good. This year it wasn't as good. But it has also to do with more stores are open. Hot Sale, the date changed a little. The Hot Sale was closer to Hot Fashion, and promotions were not as strong. But these are a little bit like where you should aim to go into the market, the dates, if you want to address the market here. Now, Mexico is a very social culture, as you might know from all the cliches that you know about Mexico, and it's a very like culture that likes social life, that likes food, that likes party, that likes all these things. And there's a lot of social media consumption, and 48% of Mexicans who shop online have made a purchase in Facebook Shop or Instagram Shop. Shipping methods, most people have it home delivered. Addresses can be tricky in Mexico, are getting better, but still you have a lot of like weird directions, and it's not completely standardized, but it's getting better. But then you have pickup in distribution center, but you can see that home delivered is the best one here. In terms of the return policies, the most important thing to tell you on this slide is that 3 of 10 Mexicans have made at least one return during 2020. Meanwhile, in the USA, 3 out of 5 Americans had made a return during 2020. So culturally, the returns are not typical in Mexico. They are a selling point, but traditional retail never really adopted it in a way that the customer got used to it. So it's a very big advantage for the market in Mexico, which you have lower returns across the different categories. Now, to give you an idea, and Amapola spoke about this, just to give you an idea about marketplace and retail, you have, Walmart has marketplace as well. There's a tick there, but you have here the top marketplaces. Amazon is investing really seriously in terms of sales. They are almost compared now to Mercado Libre, but these are the top markets. Conditions apply. They all have different services, so you should address them directly. I would advise probably to get someone that understands the culture to help you speak with them and understand the different options and so on. And conditions can be negotiated in most cases if you have relevant dimension. And now, this is why we think there's a big opportunity in Mexico. We are seeing 2 types of companies post-pandemic, the digitally strategic and the digital superheroes. The digital superheroes, more than anything, are about this image that before they did nothing on e-commerce, now they see like an explosion in e-commerce, and what we are seeing is they feel like they are Superman or Wonder Woman. And what's happening here is that this is what the client wants. When there's a health issue like COVID, he wants like a top hospital. But what we are seeing now is that they just did something of an emergency. We are seeing now like local players with bad experience. You have like on the left, you have like Office Depot. And then on the right, you have the same experience within Rappi, which is like a delivery service. But the experience is still really bad. So what happened? We are seeing that limited investment from local players, not a great experience, So we are seeing a lot of opportunity for foreign players that actually know how to play the market. It's not a very professional market still. There's a lot of people missing in terms of like professionals and so on that know about e-commerce, UX, and so on. So we are seeing a really strong opportunity for international players. So this combined with the market is what we believe it's more interesting. So if you see like, although like what the client wants is this, and he wants a top experience, what we've been offering them in terms of health is like just a hospital in the parking lot. What's happening now that we are coming back post-COVID to a place where e-commerce and some companies have managed to grow capacity, develop experience, and people started buying online, but first they started buying with the brands they knew that were the traditional Mexican brands. Now that they are more familiar with buying online, they're starting to buy on e-commerce with the big famous brands. So this is a massive opportunity for foreigners. And now, another thing that is important to you is that you're coming to the market, you have to tropicalize. Like, you have to speak Spanish. Only 5% of Mexico's population speaks English fluently. And you're talking about a population that is mostly on the bottom of the pyramid. If you see here, the top of the pyramid is actually very small, and in terms of income and so on. So also customer support and everything, you have to think about, it's more interesting in Mexico to address the base of the pyramid, and it's more interesting in Mexico if you're actually know the culture and you're able to address the issues in the local language. So that's a massive thing. And now, some specific things like how do you differentiate online? Two things, price and brand are two critical aspects all over the world. People, of course, are looking for better prices and better conditions. Now, brand is important as well. Like if you want to buy a pair of Nikes, you don't want just to buy some tennis shoes. But then two things that are very important: safety, because of the history in Mexico and regarding safety issues and credit card fraud and so on. And then another thing that is very important for you to know: installments. Often more important than the discount is the ability to pay in 12 months, 36, 48 months. So if you're going to do promotions, often that is more important. And if you work with the different marketplaces, or if you're coming directly, the banks can do it for you. I also would actually urge you to consider entering the market in a more direct way with your own website, and not only through marketplaces that are tricky and have several inconveniences, although they are easier. So in conclusion, Mexico presents a great opportunity for new entrants, high growth market with relevant size, favorable business environment, although there are some political issues. The truth is, compared to other countries in Latin America, and it's a very good business environment, limited competition that is not doing that great. In terms of experience, although the international players are here, and that's because the market is interesting. A successful entrance must include addressing the several areas of the pyramid. Often people are like, no, we're just going to sell to rich people in Mexico. Yeah, you have some very wealthy people, there's business there, but it's small. Consider local service and partners, and tropicalize the content and experience. So if you think about Mexico, amazing country, but understand the nuances and probably get some help on the entrance here. Here are my contacts. Very glad to be of help, and thank you very much.
Give you a little tour around some marketing tips on how to address the market in Mexico as a newcomers. So as Louis mentioned, my name is Marianna. I'm currently the managing director for ProfitlogiQ at Mexico. So Around 3.5 years ago, my associates and myself saw that the marketplaces in Mexico were coming to create a growing business, and we wanted to do something interesting around it. So our goal was to create technology that will help all the sellers to assure that they increase their sales by working with us. So we didn't just wanted to represent current marketplaces. We wanted to go beyond that, and that's why we created ProfitlogiQ, which is mainly an advertising technology company that works around Amazon mainly. And we are currently the biggest partner for Amazon in Mexico, working with the biggest brands actually since the beginning of Amazon. So I'm going to walk you through the impacts of COVID-19 and trends, specifically in e-commerce, even though David already said a few things about it. So interesting data that we actually have the same numbers. So by 2019, the e-commerce in Mexico was worth $31 billion. And by 2020, it increased to 52, which is almost 65% growth. And the forecast for 2021 is to go up to $68 billion, which is incredible. This growth rate was due to pandemic, of course. And if you see and you try to do a zoom into the first period of the pandemic in Mexico, we could see there was a 20% increase of search through the internet to buy woods. And in terms of sales, the increase was 26%. So what is an interesting data is that from February to May 2020, there was an increase of 1 million new online buyers, which is a lot. But those new buyers, what were they doing? So basically, the first vertical that was growing was clothes and shoes. Even though we were in a crisis, we wanted to look good. So actually, it was one of those buyers. And as David says, Mexicans, we do not return stuff. So even you don't fit on it, you never take it back. I don't know why we do this. So the rest of the verticals that actually were for the new buyers were basically automotive accessories, home and furniture and garden, because people were, locked out in their houses, seeing all the defects, and they wanted to have a more prettier place to live in. So I believe that's the reason why this increased. Mobile phones, self-defense nets, and so on. But then if you take a look at the growth rate of all of the verticals on e-commerce, we could see that, of course, food and delivery was one of the biggest that increased because, of course, people wanted to eat and the restaurants were closed. Actually, a bunch of new dark kitchen restaurants emerged during pandemic, which is basically somebody that creates just a restaurant just for delivery and never had actually a physical place to give the service on. The fashion was the second one that increased from 32% to 45%, which is a lot. And then we see other verticals such as tools, for example, that people wanted to fix their homes, as I just mentioned. So it was 8 points increase, and electronics, beauty, personal care, etc. also were one of the mains that had a particular growth. So internet basically became the default shopping channel in Mexico, which wasn't the default shopping channel before pandemic. But you may ask yourselves, well, okay, so there was an increase of the e-commerce market, but if I want to enter that market, how do I do it? So I'm gonna walk you through a few of taboos, do's and don'ts from Mexico, because we have a lot of experience working with many brands. So I hope that my experience will help you guys to just get into Mexico easier. So first taboo, people sometimes say that mobile first, mobile only, do your campaigns only for mobile phones because that's the only channel to use. But let me tell you that for Mexico, that's not entirely true. Because in Mexico, even though 59% of the users are actually buying by using a mobile phone, you still have 28% of users buying through a desktop or a laptop. So whenever you create your campaign or you design your e-commerce website, always think that there's still an important market on desktop. Don't just throw away that investment. Remember to address that market too. Another taboo is that you need to speak Spanish to sell in Mexico, and that is partially true. And I want to walk you through why. Some of the marketplaces, when you actually start working with them, have some tools that will help you, create a campaign without actually knowing the language locally. So don't be afraid to jump in and start selling in Mexico using, for example, Amazon advertising. You have a tool called automatic targeting that, even though you create everything in your local language, will be automatically translated and will address our market. But it's also false because, all the search engine optimization efforts that you need to you create your website and to define, the titles and the description of your products in every marketplace have to be strategically designed. So you have to make sure that you are emulating how Mexicans are seeking for products. So that cannot be done by a robot or by artificial intelligence. You need to have an actual human, Mexican-speaking human, to create this strategy for you. So the tip that I could give you is just hire a local agency for doing the translation and the search engine optimization efforts, and you'll be just fine. It's not that expensive, so don't worry about it. So another taboo, buyers who have had problems with their purchase are less likely to buy again from that seller. And I'm sorry to tell you guys that in Mexico, this is so true. So reputation in Mexico equals more or less sales depending on how your reputation is. For example, in Amazon, there's an algorithm that defines in what position your product is going to appear organically, meaning without paying for advertising. So for that algorithm, one of the most important and relevant parts is actually the stars that your product has. If you don't have more than 3.5 stars in the reviews, you won't be able to have your product shown organically, and that will definitely get you less sales. So just to have a quick walkthrough to the main purchase problems that we have in Mexico. Delivery times, when they extend too much, people tend to, get, upset. Difficulty communicating with the customer service, unable to be tracking the shipment. One that I hate, and please don't do this, is when the product is not of the quality that it shows in the pictures. So it's very important that you have good pictures. If you can actually add videos, that helps a lot. So to make sure that people know it's exactly what you're buying. Sometimes purchase arrives in bad condition or incomplete, or the returns are complicated. So just take a look at all these items and make sure that you address them correctly. And think of this as an opportunity. If other sellers are making these mistakes, make sure you don't, so you get more recommendations and therefore more sales. So another taboo is that Mexicans pay only in cash, and that was true a few years ago, actually almost a few months ago too. But here's the truth: 16% of the e-commerce transactions in Mexico are actually paid in cash. How? Because we have a network, a cash payment network within the country that it's basically made for small grocery stores that accept payments from Amazon, from Mercado Libre, Linio, and other marketplaces. So when you create your e-commerce, you have to make sure that you always add a cash payment method. But also during pandemic, many who had been basically operating solely in cash were forced to adopt some kind of digital payment method, and mostly it was prepaid, and that was due to the government start giving some aids to the population, and that aid was created on prepaid cards that helped the e-commerce grow a little bit more. So another taboo, and I'm going to be a little bit contradictional with David. So is it better to start selling locally on a marketplace before launching your e-commerce? I think this is partially true. So let's just think of something. In Mexico, when you have a brand that nobody knows, and if you launch that brand into a marketplace, you want to make sure of three things. First, when you are not known, the marketplace will give you security for the customer. The customer will think that you are a safe brand to buy. Secondly, the marketplaces will warranty local demand on traffic. So you don't have to start from zero, from scratch, trying to get traffic into your website. You can start by using Amazon, by using Mercado Libre, Wish. There's another one called Canasta Rosa, which is new. And at the same time, you can launch your website. Just make sure that you have both strategies so you get some respect from the community, knowing that you already work with one of the big ones. And just a quick data, which is interesting, 50% of e-commerce transactions are carried out through a marketplace. So if you are not in one, you are losing that opportunity. So never, never, never work just outside them. Of course, there's a cost to get into them. You're gonna, have a percentage taken away from your revenue, but it's totally worth it. So having said all of these taboos and do's and don'ts, how can we maximize sales in our Mexican e-commerce channel? So for that, well, you have to do a marketing digital strategy, right? So what we do in our company, it's basically create a strategy that it's made by 4 steps that you have to always go through all of them. So first of all, you need to do a diagnosis. You have to understand where are you standing, the category that you are trying to sell. What's the volume of search in Mexico? How big is it? Who are you competing with? Then once you know where you're standing, you have to first, make sure that organically you are optimized, meaning that you have, a good translation of your product pages, no matter where you are announcing them. You have to make sure, that your key terms that are programmed within your website are the right ones, so people can actually find you using the search engines. Then you have to do, of course, a media campaign and make sure that you have the proper tools to maximize revenue using artificial intelligence. There are many platforms that you can use. We're going to walk you through all of them. And at the end, you have to be able to read the data after you launch your campaign. You have to learn what worked, what didn't work, and then you have to improve your strategy without being afraid of making a mistake. So So for diagnosis, I'm going to walk you through an example, which is a skincare cream. So basically what we do in the diagnosis step is make sure that we understand the benchmark metrics for the category. So you can, address your Facebook account manager, Google account manager, even though Amazon and Mercado Libre will give you this sort of data. This data that you see right here is real data from Amazon. So what we can see here, it's what's the average cost per click that skincare have inside Amazon, and what's the average return of investment that you can expect because it's, an average for the category. So most of the time you get to be aligned to these numbers. You don't get to be, way up or down of them. It's very common to be around them. So this gives you kind of an overall view of what you can expect. Then you have to understand the search volume that it's available for the category or the product that you are trying to sell. Because remember, this is not the same size as China. We are not the same size as the US. So some categories are very big and some of them are not that big. For example, for skincare products, we have around 461,000 searches per month in Amazon, and that's kind of one of the biggest categories that we have. Then you have to understand who are you competing with and how are they ranking against you. And if the competition is kind of fragmented in the long tail, or do you have just a market divided into just a few competitors? So you can understand who should you be analyzing in terms of what keywords are they using, what pricing strategy do they have, so you can create your own strategy. So once you know who is your competition, then you understand which are their prices. So what's the lowest and the highest price of each, which products are the most or best sellers, and therefore you can create your own pricing strategy. You can create bundles and so on. Once you know the competition and the pricing, then you have to understand the visibility that your brand has in each marketplace when you are searching for a brand, your own brand, or when you are searching for perhaps the category, or when you are searching for competitors. And this will give you a dashboard that will help you understand if you need to increase some of your positioning, or if you are actually very, very well positioned in some of these benchmarks. So once you know all of that, then you get a result for the diagnosis, which is a list of actionable insights that you can use in your search engine optimization campaign, as well as in your media campaign. So you'll get a list of all the high volume keywords to target, competitors to target, the most expensive ones, the one that has badges for the marketplaces, such as bestsellers, the ones that have the Prime badge for Amazon, and so on. You can understand which competitors are winning the first 10 positions and on page 1, etc. So those actionable insights will help you create a very, very good campaign. So once you have the diagnosis, it's time to do the organic optimization. And for that, there's one simple tip. You have to understand the parameters needed for better ranking. So Google have their own parameters. Then you have Mercado Libre, and then you have Amazon. So all of them have their own algorithm for that. So you have to understand how it works. This is a quick view of how A9 algorithm from Amazon works. So basically what they ask you is to accomplish this list of things. So the title has to have 140 characters, and description at least 1,000, and you need 4 to 5 images, 5 bullets, 4-star ratings, and at least 15 reviews. If you don't have this, when you search for your product, nobody will be able to find it organically. So just be careful with that. And then you have to create your brand store, your website, and your product pages. So you have to make sure that when you do it, you have to use the strategic key terms that we saw on the diagnosis portion of the analysis. So people will find you because you will be thinking as a Mexican things when we are seeking for products. So now it's a turn to a media campaign and performance. So when you do a media campaign, you have to understand that there's a sales funnel. I'm sure you are all seen this before. So first you have to get a lot of people to know your product, and that step we call awareness. And for awareness, you can actually create a bunch of campaigns in all of the platforms that exist. You can use Facebook, Instagram, Google. You can actually use a programmatic tool, to look for in the billions of websites that exist in Mexico. Have some display banners there, and you can use Amazon advertising as well to create a bunch of people on the awareness step. Then you have to go down to the consideration step, in which you have people that are already interacting to your product or to the category, and they are willing to buy. And after that, you get into the purchase phase of the funnel, in which basically what you do is retargeting strategies, meaning that the person that tried to buy your product and abandon the shopping cart will be receiving advertising to go back to the marketplace or to your website and finish the purchase. Or you can do remarketing. That means that if you already purchased a product, perhaps you can sell another one that is related. For example, you sell a couch, and then you can sell a carpet that fits the couch and combines. So for search, remember to use the the key term families, which are the 5 that you can see below. So always use a brand term strategy, meaning all of your own brand has to be used in the key terms to protect your brand. When you are looking for your brand, you have to make sure that you can find yourself there. Then you have to use competition terms, category terms, of course, all the automatic keyword tools that your marketplace allows you. And finally, you have to use product targeting, meaning that you make a list of the best selling products for the competition. And whenever people find them, they will find you just across the product so they can see you too. For display advertising, that's another story. Each platform has different audiences available to target. You just have to make sure that the ones that you choose have some logical in regards to the category and the product that you're using. Make sure that on the awareness level, you use a wider audience, such as just, gender and split ages into ranges. For consideration, you can use a little bit more specific audiences. And for purchase, just try to focus on remarketing strategies to try to take back the customers that left your purchase process. And finally, for optimization of your campaigns, just make sure that you are using a platform that actually uses a predictive algorithm that will help you increase your return of investment. There are many in the market, depending on where you addressing your e-commerce. If you're working with marketplaces, you can directly use the advertising, Amazon advertising platform. You can use the Mercado Libre advertising platform. You can use our platform, which is ProfitlogiQ, which is connected to Amazon directly. Or if you own your own e-commerce, you can use Facebook, Instagram, Google, etc. Just make sure you have a good trader that is, designing your campaign. And then you can also increase sales by adding social media experts. In Mexico, it's right now it's very fashion to use live shopping in Facebook. So what you do basically is that you create a video in real time with somebody showing how to use the product, what are the results, and then it's linked to Facebook shopping directly, so you can create sales in real time. And on Amazon, actually live shopping is not available for Mexico yet. It's going to be released at the end of the year. But what it's available is the new Amazon influencers platform. So what this is that now influencers in Mexico can actually build a storefront in Amazon and then create content and earn commissions from the transactions that are made. But of course, when we own a brand, we can create our own storefront using perhaps somebody famous, to make sure that we leverage a lot of traffic. So this is going to be a new industry itself, I think, the influencers in Amazon. So make sure that you know how it works. Here are the links that you can actually register right now and start using it. So the last step is to make sure you read, learn the data, and improve your strategy. So for that, don't always have a dashboard, a panel that shows you everything in real time. That's my suggestion. Understand the investments that you're making and the sales and the return of investment that you have for each of them, and understand two of the most important metrics. So one of them, of course, is revenue, but never forget which platform is bringing you people that is new to your brand, because it's important to always have a growth strategy on the landscape, because otherwise you will get flat sales eventually in won't be bringing more and more new people to buy your products. And last but not least, is you have to understand the individual reach and sales for every ad platform that you use, and you have to understand the mix of the results. For example, in this chart, you can see, and it's actually real data for one of the largest CPG customers in Mexico. When they use only Amazon DSP, the purchase rate is less than 1%. When they use the search platform for Amazon, it goes 0.4%. But when they use both platforms, it increases to 2%. So it's huge growth, meaning that the mixed efforts are actually way better than, to work separately. So for that, you need to be able to have an attribution system for your, marketing campaigns. There are many in the markets. There's one called Seismic. You could use Amazon Marketing Cloud that will help you understand these numbers, and others that you can actually use. But the most important about digital marketing is that really you learn more from failure than from success. So don't let the failure stop you, because it will build your character, and you have to try to, be creative, do some iterations from your campaigns, your targeting strategies, even the creatives and the messages that you send, and make sure, you never stop, having new ideas, because otherwise you won't improve. So this is the presentation that I had for you. If you want to read more about us, you can look for us at ProfitlogiQ.com, or you can write directly to sales@ProfitlogiQ.com, and we could help you out, by launching your campaigns here in Mexico. So thank you, Louis,